Hello, how are you? I'm so glad you're here. In this video, I want to talk a bit about what to do when we kind of go off the rails a wee bit and how to get things back on track. Now, it can happen at various points in recovery that things seem to go a wee bit astray. And you'll hear of had people talking about this with different things, be it if you're on a diet. So that's probably the most common one that people can relate to. If someone's on a diet and they're doing really well and they're sticking to the whatever the regime may be, and then they have a donut or they're out for a meal or they have a bag of crisps, whatever it is they shouldn't have had according to their whatever diet program they're on. And they think, oh well, do you know what? I've had the crisps, I may as well have another packet, or I may as well have a sweetie, or I may as well have a biscuit, or whatever it may be. And it's that idea that, well, once I'm off the wagon, so to speak, that there's no coming back, and I may as well. What's the point of I've kind of spoiled it for myself anyway? I may as well carry on. And that's how people get into the kind of slippery slope of going back down the well, what does it matter anyway? That's me. And before you know, you're back into the old habits that you had done so well to kind of put aside. And the same thing happens often when we're doing work around around our persistent symptoms. So it may be that you've got into a good routine of doing your somatic tracking, you're doing lots of self-care activities, you're noticing your thoughts, you're doing all these things that you know are part of your program and that you can see an improvement with, and then maybe something happens that knocks you off track. So your routine changes for some reason, and maybe you haven't done the self-care activities you normally do, or you've missed your somatic tracking for several days, or you haven't done any journaling, or whatever it may be, that you think, oh, things I haven't done, what should I have done? And the first thing that tends to happen there is we give ourselves a hard time. Oh, here we go, that's me, I've not done it now. And that's how we easily get into the, oh, well, I've not done it, I may as well just carry on doing, no point in doing another bit, and there's no point in doing this, no point in doing that. And then we beat ourselves up over it. And if you remember, we've talked about that at various different points, how hard a time we give ourselves that we don't do towards other people. And this is a good example of when that would happen. So if you think again, if it was a friend who had been doing whatever, again, as I said, diet's probably the most obvious one, or exercises are the kind of obvious one that most people can relate to. They've been doing really well and been going to the gym and doing other things, and then they skipped it for whatever reason they couldn't go, and then they hadn't gone again to the gym, and blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, they're kind of out the routine. I would suggest if it was your friend or a loved one, you wouldn't be, oh, for goodness sakes, that's terrible. How could you be so awful? You haven't been to the gym for a week, and oh my goodness, that's horrendous. Again, you wouldn't say that to them. Yeah, but oh, for goodness sake, it's only a week, you can get back on track. You've only missed it a wee bit. That doesn't mean you can't get back to what you were doing and get back on where you should be, get back into your good routine again. You've done so well to get this far, so don't let that put you off. It's probably what you would say to your good friend. But more likely to yourself, you'd be saying, oh, I'm terrible, look at that, I haven't done it, that's me, I've missed it again, I haven't done what I should have done, I've let myself down, I've let my family down, I've let everybody down, I've let my therapist down, I've let my coach down, I'm letting everybody down. What a terrible person I am that I cannot stick to this program that I'm on. I'm just rubbish, I'm awful, and there's no point, and I probably don't deserve to get better anyway. And that's probably, to a greater or lesser degree, the chat that goes through our own heads when we talk to ourselves in relation to whatever it may be, whether it's exercise, diet, and obviously in these kind of terms we're talking about our work on persistent symptoms. But the same thing applies to anything like that, any kind of patterns or habits that we're trying to change. We tend to beat ourselves up when we go off track a little bit, and we often think, well, I'm off it anyway now, so what's the point? What is the point? I'm not going to get it anyway, I might as well give up. And that can be really disheartening. And that's something that happens a lot when I'm working with people. They find that they're getting along, making progress, something happens, off track, there we go, that's me, I'm done. What's the point? Back to square one. But you're not back to square one, because you're starting from a different place. You're starting from the knowledge you've already got. And often when things do go off track, it's maybe because we're trying to be too rigid and we're trying to set our goals too high. So it may be that you thought, right, I'm going to do every day, I'm going to spend 20 minutes doing somatic tracking. I'm going to go for a walk for 40 minutes. I'm going to journal for 20 minutes. I'm going to meditate for half an hour. I'm going to do some yoga. I'm going to do that. Big, lots of different things that you plan. I'm going to do it every day, and that's what I'm going to do. But in amongst that, you've still got your job, you've got your household things to attend to, you've got children to attend to, you've got a partner to attend to, maybe got parents to attend to, you've got other responsibilities and other activities you need to do. You've got a lot to contend with. So before you know it, all these best intentions, these things that you set in to actually improve your symptoms, are potentially actually aggravating your symptoms because you're giving yourself too much to do, and then inevitably you'll not be able to achieve it. You'll fall off the wagon, as we say, and then you're down that slippery slope. Well, I'm no good anyway. I've failed. I'm rubbish. I can't stick to it. What's the point? So often it happens because we've set the bar too high. You're trying to put in too much. Although we call this work around managing persistent symptoms, it shouldn't be work and then it's adding to your stress, because if it's adding to your stress, it's completely counterproductive. So what I would say when we're setting goals is always make it very achievable. If it seems like too much, then it probably is. And if you have had a spell where you've managed to do whatever it is you've set yourself to do, and then you've fallen off the wagon, then set things a wee bit lower. So do one thing that's going to get you back on track. What one thing can I schedule in for tomorrow that's going to get me back thinking, actually, I can maybe do this again? And then what can I do the next day? What one thing can I do the next day? And it just takes one thing. It just takes one thing that we can stick to that can actually start to make that change. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to, again, if you look into this work, and there's like a million and one different things you could be doing. And even if you do all the time in the world, realistically, that'd be far too much pressure. That's putting pressure. I've got to do it, I've got to do it, I've got to get better. That, again, is counterproductive. It shouldn't be adding to your stress. So what one thing can you do? What one thing can you add in that isn't going to add to your hassles, isn't going to add to your massive list of things you've already got to do? What one thing can you do that is contributing towards you lowering the state of alert in your nervous system and therefore helping you work towards resolving your persistent symptoms? So if you have fallen off track, if you have been making good progress, and then one thing starts to slip, and the next thing starts to slip, and the next thing, and then before you know it, you feel as if you're back to square one, what one thing can you do tomorrow that's going to help you get back on and start to feel as if you're doing something towards helping your symptoms again? Notice when you're beating yourself up, if you do lose track, and we all go off the rails, we all get out of the habit, things take over, and that's okay, because you're doing your best with whatever you've got going on in your life right now, and you're always doing your best. But if you can catch it, if you can notice what's happening and say, right, okay, it's not working right now, and it may be that you need to be flexible enough to adjust around because life changes. What's happening this week maybe isn't the same to next week. So you need to be able to adjust and give yourself that flexibility and give yourself that break to say, actually, this week is a lot on. It's not realistically for me to do these things this week. What one thing can I do each day this week that is going to keep me ticking over, is going to keep things roughly where I want them to be? It's maybe not ideal, but what one thing can I do? And then maybe the following week you've got a bit more space. So what else can I add in that's going to work this week, and the next week may be different again? So it's having that flexibility, having that ability to see, actually, and recognising, that's the important thing, is recognising when things are going up and down and being able to ebb and flow with that as life comes and goes, because that is real life. And realistically, these symptoms are here because you're under stress, and adding to the stress by giving yourself more pressure is not going to help. So you must try and have that flexibility to say, actually, hands up, this is too much right now. What can I rein in? What one thing am I going to keep? And then have the flexibility to say, actually, I think I can do a wee bit more now. And then maybe need to step back a wee bit. And what can I add in here? And what can I let go? And that's the important thing. And that's the life skill, if you like, out of all of this that we need to have, is that it's having that flexibility, and it's having that ability to notice what's going on before it becomes overwhelming and it gets too much again. So the key point to take away is, don't beat yourself up if you've gone off track. It's perfectly natural, perfectly normal. It happens to everyone to some degree at some point. take it as a sign that you probably set yourself your goals too high. You're probably trying to do too much with whatever's going on in your life just now. What one thing can you do tomorrow to get you back on track? How can you notice in future when things are getting a bit overwhelming? And how can you try to build in that flexibility, that ebbing and flowing to go with whatever life is thrown at you, that you're always keeping yourself as best you can. You're always doing some elements of this work to keep your nervous system on a more even keel, but have that flexibility to recognise when things are getting too busy and you just don't have the time or the headspace or whatever to do everything in an ideal world you'd like to do. Okay, so see how you got on with that. As always, if you get any questions or queries, just send me an email, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.